everyone! In today's video, I am going to discuss the pros and cons of having a midwife and an obstetrician, as well as why I personally prefer having a midwife. Funny story about this is that I already filmed this, but when I went to go edit, I just could not put it up on the internet. I looked like complete, utter crap. Pregnancy and motherhood introduces a multiple of decisions that need to be made. Breast milk or formula, cloth diapers or disposable diapers, strollers or a baby carrier. But the first decision that needs to be made is whether you want to be seen by a midwife or an obstetrician. With my first pregnancy, I was under the care of an obstetrician. However, with my second pregnancy, I was with a midwife. I'm here to tell you that there are major differences between the two options. Let me state this before I move on with the video. I had an extremely easy pregnancy. Actually, both of them were extremely easy and smooth sailing. My experiences with both my midwife and my obstetrician may very well differ from your own. Your mileage may vary. As with everything in life, it all depends on the individual. Let's begin with the pros and cons of having a midwife as your care provider for your pregnancy and your labor and delivery. Pros to having a midwife. Number 1, increased likelihood of a natural birth. I honestly feel like most midwives are more empowering towards a woman's ability to give birth naturally, the way that our body's intended, as opposed to an obstetrician. They are less likely to encourage the use of medical induction methods as well as the use of interventions. With that being said, I find that most midwives are super encouraging with whatever way you choose to birth, whether that means you choose to opt for an epidural, like I did, or if you want to have an induction, which one of my pregnancies, I wanted an induction. And one, I really didn't want an induction, but the baby needed to get out. Midwives can be as hands-on or as hands-off as you want. Number 2, more time spent with patients. One thing that I noticed with my second pregnancy was that my midwife spent way more time with me than my obstetrician ever did. My midwife spent adequate amount of time going over test results, no matter how small they were. She answered any questions that I had, and I don't know if it's because that she's a woman or if it's because she's a midwife, but she had like the sense. She knew the next question that I had before I even asked it. How cool is that? Number 3, midwives are more thorough. Of course, this largely depends on your individual doctor or midwife. My midwife was incredibly thorough when revealing my results for any lab work, exams, ultrasounds, everything. I didn't even know my blood type before she went over my blood work with me. Turns out I'm A positive. Number 4, midwives can work in either a hospital setting, at a birth center, or even at your home. It's a common misconception that midwives are only of use when you're having a home birth, but that's not true. Midwives can be with you no matter where you choose to birth, as long as they are allowed to practice there. Wherever you feel most comfortable, you can have a midwife there. Cons of having a midwife. Number 1, midwives are only covered in a hospital setting. Boo! In the majority of instances, midwives are not covered under most insurance plans in the instance that you have a home birth or a birth center birth. Most women will have to pay out of pocket for midwife services. This could range between $3,000 to $5,000 depending on your location. Ouch! I didn't have that kind of money to blow on a midwife, so I was happy that I was able to find a midwife that was seriously in walking distance from my house, across the street from my daughter's school. It was so awesome. She delivered in a hospital, and I didn't really have a preference as to where I wanted to deliver, but I delivered in a hospital and it wasn't so bad. Number 2, midwives are not for high-risk pregnancies. Most midwives will refer you to an obstetrician if she deems your pregnancy as high risk. This could include preeclampsia, gestational diabetes, multiple births, repeated C-section, as well as having a breech baby, among other things. Now, Juliana was actually breeched until she was about 34, 35 weeks along, and if she wouldn't have flipped, I would have had to be seen by an obstetrician to have a C-section. The hospital that I went to was not gonna try to have a breech baby delivered vaginally. I know that some midwives will try delivering a breech baby, but I'm not really educated on that particular subject since I did not deliver at home or at a birth center. Let's move on to the pros and cons of having an obstetrician, or an OB for short, as your care provider during your pregnancy and your labor and delivery. Pros to having an obstetrician. 1. OBs have completed medical school. This is actually the main reason why many women choose an OB as their care provider for their pregnancy. While doctors are no more knowledgeable about low-risk, non-surgical births, many women feel safer being in the hands of an OB. And that's perfectly fine. However, being in the care of a midwife is just as safe. So no worries, no matter which option you choose. Number 2, obstetricians can perform C-sections. Although midwives can sometimes be present during a C-section, they are not allowed to perform the surgery itself. Only a doctor can. If you were to be seen by a midwife your entire pregnancy and you needed a C-section, you could possibly be seeing somebody that you've never met before. Actually, this could go for any kind of birth if your doctor is away or if they're delivering another baby. So it could be a good idea to meet the other doctors in the clinic, in the practice, just to know their face or their voice. My midwife scheduled me to meet the other 2 obstetricians for that very reason. Number 3, obstetricians can care for high-risk patients. If you're a high-risk patient, you will likely be seen by an obstetrician, as midwives are not exactly qualified to take you on. Obstetricians are excellent when it comes to tricky pregnancies. If you're low risk like me, a midwife could possibly be a better option for you, if that's what you desire. Cons of having an obstetrician. Number 1, you are more likely to be unnecessarily induced with an obstetrician. Many obstetricians will push for an induction the closer you get to your 40-week mark. Midwives are more likely to let you go over. My midwife, she said that the end of my pregnancy was very touch and go. She would let me go past 41 weeks, but she was not really gonna let me go to 42 weeks as per the hospital policy. Luckily I didn't have to make that decision because Juliana came 3 days after the due date. Number 2, you are more likely to face interventions and have a C-section with an obstetrician. Midwives are great about allowing a woman to birth as long as needed, as long as baby and mother is not in distress. With many obstetricians, it's as if you're on a time limit to reach certain dilation milestones, and if you don't reach them in time, you could be facing a C-section, regardless of the health of mom and baby. Number 3, obstetricians typically spend less time with patients. Since an obstetrician normally has more patients than a midwife, they may be unable to spend a lengthy amount of time with you, and they may give you short answers to your questions. This, of course, largely depends on the individual doctor. So, why do I prefer a midwife? Assuming I'm having a low-risk pregnancy, I prefer to be seen by a midwife. I feel like I'm less likely to encounter unnecessary interventions, like they're going to take their time with me, both during my pregnancy and my labor and delivery, which is so important to me. I don't want to be on a time limit. I want to be able to reach my dilation milestones when my body says, hey, you're gonna be a 6 now. Oh, you're gonna be a 10. It's time to push. I prefer midwives because I like to be treated like a mom to be instead of a number. Regardless of my personal preference, I recognize the need for obstetricians and I'm so thankful that they are available for high-risk pregnant mothers or simply for women who just want to be seen by a doctor. I am a huge fan of options. Women should have a choice in their medical care. So, were you under the care of an obstetrician or a midwife during your pregnancy? Leave it in the comments below. I would love to read it. That's it for this video. Please give it a big thumbs up and scroll down and click the subscribe button. I would love that. It would make my day. Bye guys! So yeah, I wish you would have just slowed down a little bit more. It's crazy that I'm having to full-blown chase a 10-month-old baby. A 10-month-old. She's over here eating her giraffe.